Learners, welcome to teaching learning session of sociology. In series of social stratification, we discussed about the dimensions of social stratification. We discussed about the perspectives of functionalist. We discussed about the Marxist and the Weber's perspectives. Right, today we'll discuss about the, and then we discussed about dimensions of stratification, on which basis we stratify the society. And one of the factors for stratification of society is race and ethnicity. Right, we stratified the society on the basis of race and ethnicity. Right, the concept like race and ethnicity are considered as biological, but such concepts have a deeper meaning and social constructions. Race and ethnicity, see, we divide the people into races on the basis of their biological differences, right? But when we stratified the society on the basis of race and ethnicity, this race and this has a deeper meaning and the social construction. They are not just the social construction, rather they lead to creation of various identities and marginalization of different social groups. Right, see, on the basis of race and ethnicity, right, when we divide the society, I will not say divide the society, when we stratify the society, right, then it creates the various identities. Right, every race has its identity. Right, ethnicity, it creates a various identities, and on the basis of race and ethnicity, society marginalize the different groups, some of the groups, right, some of the groups get marginalized, some become dominant. Right, so on the basis of stratification, this is not only a social construct, this is not only a social dimension of stratification, but it plays a very important role in stratification, because this race and ethnicity is responsible for creation of various identities and marginalization of different social groups. Right, how can we define race? Race is understood as external physical features of various human beings, whose categorization depends on features like skin color, facial features, heights, etc. Right? When we divide the people into groups on the basis of their physical features, like on the basis of heights, on the basis of their facial features, on the basis of their skin color, then that is known as race. Blacks, white, right, short heighted, long, on the basis of their facial features, right, then that is known as race. That's why race and ethnicity is a biological concept. When we divide the groups on the basis of biological features, right, these categories are considered as biological because we inherit, as we know that we inherit all these things, right, our height, our skin color, normally we inherit all these biological features. Hence widely raised is regarded as a biological category. Thus a racial group is described as a group having a similar physical traits. So group, when we divide the group on the basis of various biological features, then these groups have similar physical traits. It is a condition where group sees a similar characteristics between themselves and sees others as different. Right? A group. What is a group? What are the features or the characteristics of a group? There is a feeling of we. We feeling is important to form a group. When we race is what? Race is a group, right, because we divide the group, when we divide the group on the basis of biological feature, then we call it as a race. Right, so race see the group, that is the in race, this group see the similar characters between themselves and sees others as a different. So there is a we feeling among the members of group. Right, so we feeling is there in a group, right, while they see themselves different from the others. Such kind of divisions were made basically by physical anthropologists during 18th century and considered as scientific classification of human beings. Along with physical features, most of the times behavior characteristics were also added to the various races. Frederick Farrar in 1866 lectured on the aptitude of a race, where he divided the people into three groups based on the civilization. Right? Apart from the biological traits, apart from the physical feature, that is behavior characteristics are also included in race. And Farrar in 1866 in his lecture Aptitude of Races, he divided the people into three groups, and these three groups are based on the civilization. First is the savage, all African, indigenous people and people of color, with exception of Chinese. First is savage group, right? Then the semi-savage, Chinese who were once savage but now well civilized. And civilized European, Aryan, and Semitic peoples are civilized. So Farrar divided the groups, the races, into three. That is the savage, semi-savage, and the civilized. That is on the basis of their civilization, right? Carlos Linus, a German taxonomist, classified the human being into four categories depending upon the skin color. See, on the basis of civilization, Ferrer divided it on the basis of civilization, and Carlos divided it on the basis of skin color. Race. When we divide the people into group on the basis of the various physical structure, and one physical trait is skin colors. Like he divided it into American red faced, right, European white, Asian yellow, and African black. So he divided it on the basis of the skin color. Red color Americans, then the Europeans, they have white skin, right, Asians yellow skin, and the African black skin. A race as a social construction. It is widely believed by many that race is a biological category, but sociologists or the social scientists and even biologists argue that race is not a biological or inherited category, but it is a social construct. The biological studies over the race and its genetics indicate that within so-called given race, much more variations are found between the races. As we say that it is a biological concept, but many sociologists and many of the scientists consider it's not a biological construct. Rather, it is a social construct, right? That various biological studies over the race indicated that within the so-called given race, there are much variations that is found between the races, right? Variations occurs when there is mutation in the genes, right? Because of the mutation in the genes, the variation occurs, and as per the studies, there are the variations within the race, right? So according to them, it's not a biological concept, rather it is a social construct. The creation of racial identities is a process of creation of hierarchies between the people. Thereby, some group enjoy power and privileges. Why? See, on the basis of races, we form a hierarchy, right? There is a creation of hierarchy between the people. On the basis of races, there is a hierarchy between the people, and some groups enjoy more power and privileges than other groups, right? The idea of race hence has no scientific basis, right? So idea of race has no scientific basis. The skin color of people varies due to presence of pigment and melanin in the skin. Racism. You might have heard this term racism. So, what is a race? Race, when you divide the people on the basis of their physical traits, then that is known as race. Racism, as historians and other scholars admit that the fact that human originated in Africa and migrated to the different geographical locations in the various phases of history, and people adopted the geographical differences and adopted the favorable trait suitable in those particular environment. During 18th and 19th century, the colonial power in the different places of the world used racism to establish their supremacy. See, as per historians, that humans are originated in Africa and they migrated to the different places in the world, different locations in the history, right? And as we know that survival of fittest, we are aware about the survival of the fittest theory. That if you want to if you want to live in that or survive in that particular environment, one has to adapt according to that particular environment. Then only one can survive. So people adapted the geographical differences and they adapted the favorable traits of those particular environment in order to survive, right? And this racism was used by the colonial power to show their supremacy, that they are superior than the others. That's why they considered, as Carlos divided the groups on the basis of the skin color. On the basis of the skin color, the colonial person, that is the they show that they are superior than the others, right? They are, so that whites are better than or superior than the blacks, right? So to show their supremacy, this racism term has been used by this race stratification, or this has been used by uh, colonial powers, right? They even took the help of religion and science to establish the racial supremacy and differences. The colonial also legitimized the slavery as well as lots of other myths to create subordinations of blacks and other colonized people. Race is a process of creation of othering, that is process by which you separate yourself from people in terms of superiority and inferiority. Hierarchy, as I said, there is a hierarchy between the people. Race is what? Race is a hierarchy, it's a social construct and it is a hierarchy between the people. It creates an hierarchy between the people. So it is a race is a process of creation of othering, that is, it is a process where one separates oneself from people in terms of superiority or inferiority. As there is a hierarchy, those who are at the top, they consider themselves as a superior than those who are at the lower levels, right? Right. So race is actually a social construct, right? It is a process of creations of othering, or it is a hierarchy on the basis of some physical traits, right? It is a process through which some people are marginalized, dominated and controlled. It also creates a various kinds of stereotype in this society. The idea of race was not scientific, rather a process of racialization of the group. So it's the idea that the idea on which we divided the group on the basis of races is not scientific, but it is on the basis of racialization of the group, right? On the basis of races, the people are marginalized, the groups are marginalized, they are dominated and controlled by other, those who consider themselves superior to them, right? Like blacks were dominated and controlled by whites, right? They were much the people in various societies on the basis of their skin colors, on the basis of their skin, their physical traits, they were marginalized or they are marginalized, right? A race was a social construct, is a social construct where cultural meaning is attached or imposed to it. Culture is what? Any, according to Ogburn, any man thing is a culture. So for to show their supremacy, for the to grab the powers, right? Are what society has done. Society has created a dimension of a race, right? So a race is a social construct and it is associated with the culture, right? It has been associated with the culture or imposed on it. Even very idea of race has changed over the time, although there is a change in the idea of the race, right? But what is a race? When we divide the people on the basis of, that is on the basis of physical characters, that is known as race. Ethnicity, right? History. What is ethnicity? The word ethnic has a long history. It is derived from a Greek word ethnos, meaning nation, which is not depicted as political entity but as a unit of person with common blood or descent, right? So the Greek, this word ethnicity is originated from a Greek word Athenos, and Athenos means nation. Nation means it is not a political entity. Nation means that is a unit of person with common blood and a descent, right? Where they where that which determines the descent of a people or the common blood, that is known as a nation. And ethnics were those others who are not us. Those who are not us, right? They are ethnic. Ethnics are those others who are not us. That is, who doesn't belong or who do not belong to our blood group or our descent or our nation, who are not like us. They are considered, those others are ethnics. Ethnics are those others who are not us, right? By the 20th century, its meaning changed again with reassertion of its Greek roots, indicating the end of them versus us idea. Them or the others being ethnic, right? Them versus us, right? Again, it was the meaning was Athenos. Athenos means who has a common blood, that who originated from the common blood or the descent. That is, those who are not us are ethnic. So with 20th century, the meaning has changed, right? And this Greek roots, the Greek roots indicates the end of the term them versus us idea. Them or others being ethnic. Them or being who are not us, who are different from others, are ethnic, right? Now it is used as a particular way to define not only others but also ourselves. Armen, using a French version of ethnics, namely Athine, defines them as a people characterized by the common history, tradition, language, and lifestyle. Athene, what is Athene? As per Amin, Athene is what? Athene are the people who are characterized by common history. They have a common history, right? They have common tradition, language, and lifestyle, right? He also adds the feature of uprootedness from home to this definition, who have common history, tradition, right, and characteristics, lifestyle, language, and uprootedness from home. For him, ethnicity emerges when people are uprooted from their homeland due to conquest or colonialization or immigration, and diverse groups come into contact with each other in a new setting. If such displaced people are away from their homeland and yet continue to follow their native lifestyle, they are Athenians, right? So according to Amen, that is they using a French version of ethnics, right? That is they define the Athene. They define that Athens, according to them, Athens are the people that who are characterized by the common history. They have a common history. They have a tradition, common tradition, language, and lifestyle. And he also, that Amen also added a feature of uprootedness from the home. If because of some of the reason, because of the colonialization, because of the immigration, because of any other reason, when the people move or immigrate from their homeland to other places, and when they come into contact with the diverse group, right? And they start living in a new setting, but despite of displacement, right? But despite of despite of displacement from their homeland, they continue to follow their native lifestyles. They are Athenians, right? Where it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are within your nation or whether you are away from your group, but still, if you are following your culture, if you are following your culture, traditions, and other things, right? Native lifestyle, then according to women, they are Athenians, right? Earlier conception of ethnicity. A literature reveals three popular conceptions of ethnicity: biological, cultural, and the psychological. The biological conception is based on the common genetic descent. In this sense, ethnicity has been treated as a synonyms with a race, right? See, there are the three concepts. There are the three actually concept on the basis of which, right? We can divide. We can say that ethnicity is based on the biological concept, on the cultural concept, on the psychological concept. As per the biological concept, right? This biological concept is based on the genetic descent. That is, when you have a common blood, right, common blood or a descent, then it is treated as synonyms with the race, right. The second conception of ethnicity involved a new thinking with different race from the ethnicity, right. This view treated race as a cultural phenomenon, right. Earlier race were considered as a biological concept, but later in 20th century, they said that there is no evidence, scientific evidence, that race is biological. It is a cultural phenomenon, it's a social phenomenon, right. So this view, that is the second conception, that is the on the basis of culture, right. They just consider that race is a cultural phenomenon. Here, the merge sharing of physical trait was not seen as a sufficient condition for defining an ethnic group. Rather, the symbolic differences among groups become the basis of ethnicity, with values, customs, history background, lifestyle, territory, and most importantly, language and religion being prominently symbols of ethnicity. If we consider that ethnicity on the if we consider that ethnic is a biological concept, that is, it is based on the descent or a common blood, then that is biological concept of ethnicity, and then we can use race and ethnicity as synonyms, right. But the second is, it is a cultural concept. If it is a cultural concept, then a mere sharing of physical trait is not sufficient condition to define an ethnic group, right. That is not sufficient to share sufficient condition to define the ethnic group. Rather, the symbolic differences among the group could be basis of ethnicity, like values, customs. If you have same values, right, customs, history, tradition, language, lifestyle, territory, right, and the religion being the prominent symbol of ethnicity, right. As per the cultural concept, it is not a biology or physical trait on the basis of which we can divide the groups. We can call it ethnic, but rather than the physical trait or the biological trait, it is values, right, customs, history, lifestyle, territory, and other languages and religions are the symbols of ethnic group. The third concept of ethnicity defines it in terms of consciousness of common identity, psychological. The third concept was the psychological, right? Both common descent and cultural distinctiveness, individually and together, were no longer considered enough to constitute the ethnicity. Instead, awareness among the members group regarding their similarity to each other and differences from others what gave them the ethnic identity. So when we divide the group, that is, the third is on the basis of the the third concept is the psychological concept, right. That is, it is in terms of consciousness of common identity, right. When there is a identity of, when there is a consciousness of we, when there is a feeling of we, right. Both common descent and cultural distinctiveness, individually and together, were no longer considered to enough to consider or constitute the ethnicity, right. Instead, awareness among the member of the group regarding their similarities to each other and differences from the other group gave them the ethnic identity. right? So on the there are the three conception of ethnicity. The first is the biological conception. When there is a common descent or a blood group, then that is not known as biological conception. The second then when in biological conception, race and we can use race and ethnicity as synonym, right? The second was the cultural, right? Rather than the cultural conception, in this the cultural conception, rather than biological trait or the physical trait, there are other things such as tradition, such as signs and symbols, right? Such as religion, language, customs, value, history, backgrounds. All these are considered important for to define the ethnic groups or ethnicity. Third conception is the psychological conception. Rather that the cultural conception and the biological conception either together or differently, right? They are no longer considered to constitute the ethnicity, right? What is important for ethnic group, that there is a consciousness of we feeling, consciousness of common identity, right? That is, there should be a consciousness or awareness among the members of the group regarding their similarities to each other and differences from the other groups that have given them the ethnic identity, right? Sharing of physical, attitudinal, behavior, and cultural feature was not considered sufficient to foster the ethnic feelings, right? See, as per this psychological conception, that if you share the physical features, if you share the attitudes or behavior or cultural features, they are not considered sufficient to foster the ethnic feeling. The group must also perceive themselves distinct from the others, that is, member must define themselves as we group. There should be a feeling of a we group, that we are different from others, right? There should be a feeling of we group, right? Ethnic groups. So what is ethnicity? See, we divide the ethnic group when there is a feeling of we, right? Then that is known as ethnic group, right? When we consider ourselves different from the others, then that is ethnicity. We are different from others, right? When people understand the similarities between the within the group and the difference and the difference between the groups, that how their group is different from the others group, then that is ethnicity. That is when there is a we feeling, then we call it is ethnic, right? Ethnic groups. Paul Gross discussed three ways of defining ethnic group in terms of objective attributes, by reference to subjective feelings, and in relation to behavior. So, Paul Brass divided it into three in terms of objective attributes, reference to subjective feelings, and relation to behavior. That is, first is objective attribute. Objective attribute, the first definition implies that there is some distinguished objective cultural features that separate from one group to other group, right? That separate one group from other group on the basis of language, territory, religion, dresses. This is called a ethnic marker, right? So objective feeling, when there are certain objective attributes, this objective attributes implies that there are some distinguished objective cultural features that separate, when there are the cultural features which separates one group from the other, right? Right. They are like language. When there is a difference of language between the groups, it separates one group from the other. Territory, right? Then the religion or the dresses, right? There could be many more which divides. There could be many other objective cultural features which divide or which distinguish or which separate one group from the other. That is the objective attribute, right? And the second objective is and the second is on the basis of subjective feeling, right? Subjective feeling, presence of subjective feeling implies the existence of an ethnic self-consciousness. When there is a feeling of we among the members of the group, we feeling we group, that is the subjective feeling, right? That is the subjective feeling implies the existence of ethnic self-conscious, that we are the how we are different from others, what are the similarities and differences, how we are different from others, how we are ethnic. This is the subjective feeling when there is a consciousness of ethnic self, right? At the base of the ethnic affinity lies real and assumed common identity. It is important chilling to keep in mind is that the fact of common descent is not important as belief in it. Ethnicity is subjective concern. It is, however, how we see ourselves, right? Subjective construct is where it is a common feeling, right? Subjective is the existence of this self-consciousness. Existence of the self-consciousness means how we see ourselves. The third dimension, that is the behavioral dimension, points to the existence of concrete specific way in which ethnic group do or do not behave in relation to or interaction with other group, right? How one group behaves, right, or do not behave in relation to or in interaction with other groups. In this sense, the normative behavior of an ethnic group may include practices related to the kinship, marriage, friendship, rituals, etc. Right? Ethnic group is a collectivity which is perceived by others in the society. So, this Brass divided it into the ethnic group into three in terms of objective attributes. In terms of objective attributes means that is the feeling, that is the that is ethnic. First is physical, that is. Objective attribute is on the basis of their physical, their behavior, their attitude, and the cultural feature, right? So this is and when we divide the group on the basis of physical feature, on the basis of history, on the basis of territory, on the basis of religion, then that is known as objective features or objective groups, right? The second aspect of this is, according to Brass, is subjective feeling. Subjective feeling when there is a awareness of self consciousness, when there is a feeling of we, right? When you can differentiate how you different, how one group is different, how our group is different from others group, right? And the third group is behavior. On the basis of behavior, when we distinguish or when we divide the group, that is behavior aspect is when how one group behaves in relation to other group, right? Ethnic stratification, right? As we all know, what is stratification? Stratification is a system whereby people are unequally ranked and rewarded on the basis of wealth, power, mind, prestige, right? That is ethnic stratification when we divide or when we separate the people or when we rank the people, right, in a hierarchy. That is known as stratification. When we stratified the people, when there is a system whereby people are unequally ranked, when we rank the people and there is an unequal rank, or when we define the hierarchy of the people on the basis of wealth, on the basis of power, prestige, group, right, race, right, class, caste, it is a part of every society. May take various forms like class, gender, race, ethnicity, right? There are various criteria or dimensions on which we can stratify the society. Ethnicity and gender being getting some attention in stratification analysis, but ethnic stratification is even replacing classes as the foremost form of social division. Since now property relation tend to be determined by the ethnic ranking instead of being the other way round. So ethnic stratification is considered one of the main um, main dimension main dimension of the stratification, right? Ethnic stratification shares a lot of things with other forms of stratification, right? Ranking, right? When we do stratify the society on the basis of ethnicity, then also there is a ranking. Ranking stratification means ranking, right? When you keep few ethnic groups on the top of the hierarchy and others at the lower level, right? So ethnic stratification, there are they share the common things with other form of stratification, whether it is on the basis of class or caste. It shares the common things like ranking. There is a ranking, right? There is inequality, right? Then discrimination is there and exploitation is there, right? Ethnic nationalism. When minority group try to play ethnic card in order to acquire a better deal for themselves in plural society, right? Some ethnic group go a step further and demand to say a political system or a control over a piece of territory or even demand of a national status of their own, and if they succeed in achieving these objectives, then they become a nationality or a nation, right? What is ethnic nationalism? Ethnic nationalism is, there are many ethnic groups that they consider themselves different from the others, right? When these ethnic group, when the groups who are in minority, those ethnic groups who are in minority try to acquire a better deal for themselves, right? Because they are in minority and they try to get a deal in themselves, like they want their say in political system, or control over a piece of a land or a territory, or they can demand even a different nation, and when they succeed in achieving these objectives, then it becomes a nationality or a nation. Ethnic nationalism, right? Ethnic nationality, right? Nationalism and ethnicity. Nationality and ethnicity are related but different, right? Ethnicity may become nationalism, and nationalism is always based on real or assumed ethnic ties. They are related but different. Ethnic may become nationalist when they succeed in getting their nation, right? That is, they become nationalism, and nationalism is always based on real or assumed ethnic ties. At the heart of nationalism lies the three themes like autonomy, unity, and identity. Autonomy implies an effort by people to determine their own destiny and free themselves from the external constraint. So, this nationalism, nationality and ethnic groups are related but different. This nationalism lies in the three themes. First is autonomy. Autonomy means that when the people determine their own destiny, they free themselves from the external constraints, right? Unity means ending internal divisions and uniting. That if there is any rifts within the group, between the group, then unity, then those rifts should be stopped or should come to an end. So there should be unity. There should be unity. Unity means ending the internal division and uniting. And identity. The third concept is the third point is identity. Involves effort by a group to find and express their authentic cultural heritage and identity, right? What is identity? The identity is, that is the identity means self consciousness. Self consciousness is how one is different from, how our group is different from others. That is when they express their authentic cultural heritage and identity, right? So this nationalism and ethnic are one but yet different. The nationalism is form of ethnicity in which a particular ethnic identity is crystallized and institutionalized by acquiring a political agenda. Nations are created when ethnic group in multi-ethnic state are transformed into a self-conscious political entity. It is the goal of sovereignty and self-determination that set a nationalism apart from ethnicity. Right? What is nationalism? It is a form of that is nationalism is a form of ethnicity. Right? In this, a particular ethnic identity is crystallized and institutionalized by acquiring a political agenda. When they want their own territory, or when they want a say in politics, and when they institutionalized when they crystallized and institutionalized by acquiring a political agenda, right? And nations are created when ethnic group in a multi-ethnic state are transformed into self-conscious political entities, right? So to maintain the it is required that sovereignty and self-determination should be a part of nationalism and should apart from ethnicity. Development of nationality. First, there is transformation of ethnic category into community, which involves changes like creation of self consciousness, linguistic unity, formation of caste association, etc. How a nationality has been developed? There are steps, and the first thing is the transformation of an ethnic category into community, right? When community means when there is a feeling of we, right? When there is a feeling of self consciousness, when there is a linguistic unity and formation of the caste association, right? When there is a self consciousness, the first step is this. The second stage involves the articulation and acquisition of social, economic and political right for the members of a group or group as a whole, right? The first is, it is important that a group should be self-conscious. The second step of nationalism is to the development of nationality is to articulation and acquisition of social, political and economical rights for the members of the group or group as a whole. When the group succeed by its efforts in achieving and maintaining group rights through political action or political mobilization, it goes beyond the ethnicity and establishes itself as a nationality. When when what is nationality? When people unite together on the basis of certain characteristics, and when they start demanding for the economic, social and political rights, and when they succeed in getting their rights through political actions or political mobilization, it goes beyond the ethnicity and then it establishes a nationality. Why does nationality become ethnicity, right? It could be answered by the relative deprivation approach, because of deprivations or the feeling of frustrations caused by the difference between what people feel they legitimately deserve and what they actually get, right? So why the ethnic people, why the ethnicity become nationality, why they revolt, why they demand for their political rights, for their social rights, for their territorial right? It could be because of their deprivation approach, relative deprivation approach. When the group feels like that they are deprived, that they are relatively deprived from their rights, right? They were considered as they are not getting their rights, then it could be one of the reasons. The second is the feeling of frustration. It could be because of differences between the people, when they feel like that they are not getting what they actually deserve, or what are their legitimately what are their legitimate rights. It could be because of these reasons. When the subjugated group fail to achieve success according to norms established by the dominant group, the nature of their response tends to be ethnic antagonism. Right? When this group fails to achieve success according to norms established by the dominant groups, the nature of their response tend to be ethnic antagonism. And this ethnic antagonism may take a form of when they are not able to um, um, achieve this success, right, as per the norms established by the dominant group, then these are known as ethnic antagonism, and it may take a form of struggle of indigenous people's right to their land and culture. Then people may start demanding for their political, social, and the territorial rights. Then there could be the struggle of indigenous people rights to their land and the culture. Efforts by minority group to procure equal economic, political, and the cultural rights. Competition by ethnic group for obtaining scarce resources and movement of separate nation. Right? It could lead to this. Right? Ethno-nationalism, the Indian case. Sharma has described how ethnic antagonism has posed four serious challenges to Thai Indian state. Right? The first is casteism. So this casteism, the curious mix of ethnic identity and the modern interest in which ethnic group uses the caste ideology to further its economic and political interest. Example is political party asking for the votes of a particular caste group. So casteism is one of the thing, right? That the ethnic antagonism has this casteism has posed a challenge to Thai of the India, right? This ethnic antagonism, it is first is casteism, that is second is communalism, the unholy alliance between the religion and the politics, in which religion may be used for political or economic gains. Nativism, the sons of soil concept, in which regional identities become a source of ethnic strength. And the ethno-nationalism, the transformation of ethnic group to nationality, which may start demanding autonomous governance in particular territory or even succession, separation, aid recognition as a sovereign nation. So Sharma has described the Indian cases, right? He has described how ethnic antagonism has posed four serious challenges to the Indian ties, right? Antagonism is when a minority group or when a group fails to achieve a success according to the norms established by the dominant group, and the nature of their response is to be ethnic antagonism, right? So, social stratification, then we can divide the group on the basis of caste and the class, right? Andre Betlai, right, has outlined the basic feature of the perspective of the caste model of Indian society, right? While he was examining its usefulness as a scheme of analysis, right? When we divide, see, there are many dimensions on the basis of which we stratify the society, and caste and Indian, especially in Indian system or in India, caste is one of the dimension of stratification of the society, right? So Andre Bataille has outlined out basic features of these perspectives of the caste model, right? It is based on the idea held and expressed by certain section of the people, and not on the observed behavior, although secondary empirical materials have been used, right? And then this the caste model, it is attached a kind of primary and universal significance to a caste in India, and this has been conceived in the classical text, right? This caste system we have conceived it from the classical text. This has been conceived in the classical text. The entire system is viewed as being governed by center or more lex explicitly formulated by the principle of rules of games, right? So there are many dimensions on the basis of which we divide the society or we stratify the society. Stratification of society means what? Stratification of society means when we form a hierarchy, or when we rank the groups in relation to other group, right? Then that is known as stratification. When there is a ranking, or when there is a when there is a ranking on the base ranking of on certain parameters, then that is known as the stratification of the society. There are the various parameters of the society. Today we discussed the two parameters of stratification, that is the race and um, ethnic ethnic parameter of the stratification of the society. Race, see what is the race when we divide the group, or when we stratify the group, or when we divide the group, or on the basis of certain physical features, right? Then that is known as a racial group, right? Later on it people said that there is no scientific evidence that this race this the difference in the physical trait is because of the biology, right? It could be the difference in the physical trait could be adaptations, right? It could not be because of the biology, it could be because of the adaptation of the environment, because when people move from one place to another, right, they have to adapt themselves to survive in those conditions. Then people said that it could be because of the adaptation, right? So a race, if we do a race is a group having a similar physical traits, right? They have a similar physical trait, then we call it as a race. Race has been divided by the various authors like Frederick Farrar divided the race into three groups on the basis of civilization, right? Rather than the physical traits, Frederick Farrar divided the races on the basis of civilization, like savage, semi-savage, and the civilized. Savage is Africans, right? Semi-savage Chinese, right? And civilized groups like Aryan and Semitic people, right? Farrar divided it on the basis of the races, on the basis of civilization. Then Kerala's divided it on the basis of the skin color, that is American, European, Asians, and Africans. That is on the basis of their skin color, right? That is when it is when we consider that race is a biological concept, but race is a social construct too, right? It was widely believed, or it is widely believed, that race is a biological construct or a biological category, but the sociologist or the social scientist, right, say that race is not a biological or inherited category, it's rather it is a social construct, right? In fact, it is a biological as well as a social construct, right? See, the creation of the racial identity is a actually is a process of creation of hierarchies between the people, right? When we create a hierarchy between the people, and few and the some groups or some people join enjoy more power and more privileges rather than the other group, right? Then racism, what is racism, right? That racism is what that is racism is during 18th century and 19th century, those colonial powers in different places of the world used racism to establish their supremacy, right? Because they want to show that those colonial power wanted to show that they are superior to they are superior to those colonies, right? And that's why they used this racism, right? So they even took the help of religion and science to establish the racial supremacy and differences, although there is no scientific evidences, but they modified the religion and sciences to establish their racial supremacy, right? How on the basis of skin color, how one whose skin color is different from the other skin color could be could be superior than the other one. There is no scientific evidences, but to show their supremacy, they used religion, sciences in their favor, right? Race is what is race? Is a process of creating othering, right? It is a creation of othering, the process by which one separates oneself from people in terms of superiority or inferiority, right? Right. Um, Race is a social construct and a cultural meaning has been imposed on it, right? Although this idea of race has been changed over a time, now on the basis of the physical traits, we don't consider that some group is superior than the others, right? Although it has been changed, right? And this racism has been used by the colonial powers to show their supremacy, right? But still, race is one of the factors or the dimension used in social stratification, right? On the basis of race, we make a hierarchy, right? Few races are kept at the top and are at the lower levels of the hierarchy, and those who are at the higher level of the hierarchy, they enjoy more power and privileges rather than those who are at the lower level of the hierarchy, right? Ethnicity, right? The another dimension of this is ethnicity, right? Ethnicity is ethnicity word is originated from a Greek word ethnos, right? That is it is not depicted as a political entity, but a unit of a person with a common blood or a descent, right? What is ethnicity? When we consider when people consider that they have a common blood or a common descent, then they consider themselves as ethnic groups, right? But 20th century, right, again there are the reassertion of this Greek meaning, right? And then nowadays it is them versus us idea, right? Ethnic means them versus us, right? Right. Them or others being ethnic, right? Means we are different, that there is a feeling that we are different from others, that when there is a feeling of self consciousness, then it is ethnicity, right? Right. um, See, there are three popular conception of ethnicity. We discussed about the three popular conception of ethnicity: the biological conception, the cultural conception, and the psychological conception. Right? Biological conception is common descent or a common blood group. Then this race and ethnicity become synonyms. The second is on the basis of your culture, right? This involved a thinking of differentiated race from the ethnicity, right? The cultural phenomenon is sharing that there is a self consciousness, right? When the people share common customs, history, backgrounds, lifestyle, language, religion, territory, right? Then that is the prominent symbols of ethnicity, right? And the third is We discussed about the third system is the psychological, when there is a feeling of we, then when there is a then one can recognize how one is different from the others, right? Right. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.